When Marvel Studios released Guardians of the Galaxy back in 2014, there was no knowing how it would be received. James Gunn took a group of virtually unknown characters and created an entirely different flavor of superhero flick. The result was a film that not only felt welcoming to general audiences, but also entirely relatable. Whether you knew who the Guardians were or not, you recognized them as a ragtag band of misfits, and you were along for the ride just the same. Which is why after two previous volumes, appearances in Infinity War, Endgame, and Thor: Love and Thunder, not to mention their own holiday special, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 marks the end of an era. In a word, the multiverse saga's been messy. We've had new characters like the Eternals fail to connect with the majority of moviegoers, and sequels like No Way Home, Multiverse of Madness, and Quantumania struggle to even tell coherent stories as a result of setting up future MCU projects. Guardians Volume 3, on the other hand, manages to rekindle the Marvel magic that's arguably been missing since Endgame. This is a self-contained story that tells the origin of Rocket, and it's his life on the line. Nothing more, nothing less. Sure, we're introduced to new characters, namely Adam Warlock, but the focus never strays from our heroes, which is something the multiverse saga's been seriously lacking. Focus. And considering most everything in this saga has had high stakes, from the end of the world, to the universe, to reality itself, it's a nice change of pace to see the Guardians working together to save one of their own. Now, while previous volumes utilized comedy, so much so that it spread to every other MCU property, here, James Gunn delivers the darkest entry in all the MCU. Yeah, there's some signature Guardians humor sprinkled throughout, but learning Rocket's backstory is sobering, to say the least. It completely recontextualizes his arc, so that we're fully able to understand why he's always been so closed off. And of course, our heroes are only as good as their villain, and that certainly rings true for the High Evolutionary. Again, we see Gunn break away from the MCU mold by giving us a completely unlikable villain. There's absolutely zero sympathy to be had for him, as he's a full-blown psychopath. Be that as it may, the High Evolutionary ultimately proves to be another top-tier MCU villain, one who's cold, calculating, and commands the screen. When it comes to fan favorites in the MCU, none may be more beloved than the Guardians, even getting their own Marvel Studios intro in this film for their big send-off. And living in a post-Endgame world, it seems only fitting their trilogy would be the final one to wrap up. After all, Iron Man, Captain America, and even Thor had to walk so the Guardians could run. No other trilogy comes close to delivering as satisfying a journey, or as memorable a story. The Guardians have represented the cosmic side of the MCU, allowing them the freedom to be more unique when compared to the Earth-based heroes. And it's exactly because their films have always been isolated that they've been the most accessible, allowing anybody to jump in at any point and become invested. Gunn even uses this to his advantage in the film, with a number of fake-out death scenes, to the point we're in disbelief all the Guardians survive by the time the credits roll. It makes for a bittersweet goodbye when realizing that from the get-go, the Guardians have been a dysfunctional family. And that's truly what these films have been about in their purest form. From day one, each of these characters were lost or broken in some way, but by forming this dysfunctional family, they were able to save each other in the process of saving the galaxy. And witnessing their growth, both individually and as a team, has allowed us as an audience to become part of that family as well. Now that we've reached Journey's End, it's time for our Guardians to venture off and find themselves. But there is a certain excitement in knowing they all get second chances. And as James Gunn heads off to DC, he can take great pride in knowing Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 is a cosmic-level mic drop. And though it's not the end of the MCU, it's the end of the MCU as we know it.
I love you guys.